The colony ship Taeguk moved through the black space between stars like a metal whale swimming through an endless ocean. Inside its metal walls, 15,000 humans lived and worked as they traveled toward their new home. The journey would take 3 more years. For most people on the ship, this was just another day. For 12-year-old Minji, it was another day of trying not to make mistakes. Minji stood in the agricultural bay, her thin hands shaking as she held a data pad. The numbers on the screen blurred together. She had been awake for 16 hours already, but her mother, Captain Yunji, expected perfect work. Always perfect work? The water levels in Sector 7, Yunji said, her voice cold as space itself. Read them to me. Minji looked at the screen. The numbers seemed to dance around. Her empty stomach made a small sound, but she ignored it. She had not eaten since yesterday morning. That was her punishment for dropping a container of seeds 2 days ago. 47.2 liters per hour, Minji said quietly. Yunji walked closer. Her boots made sharp sounds on the metal floor. She was a tall woman with hard eyes and thin lips that never smiled. The other workers in the agricultural bay pretended to be busy, but Minji knew they were listening. Check again, Yunji said. Minji looked at the screen again. The numbers still looked the same to her tired eyes. But she knew if her mother told her to check again, she must be wrong. She squinted at the display. 47.3 liters per hour, she said, hoping this was right. Yunji took the data pad from her daughter's hands. She looked at it for a long moment. 47.5, she said. You cannot even read numbers correctly. The other workers kept their heads down. Hyun-woo, who worked on the plant systems, glanced at Minji with sad eyes but said nothing. Sora, who helped with the medical care for the plants, bit her lip and looked away. Everyone on the ship knew about Captain Yunji's rules for her daughter. Everyone was too afraid to say anything. No dinner tonight, Yunji announced. Maybe hunger will teach you to pay attention. Minji felt her heart sink, but she did not cry. Crying only made things worse. She had learned this lesson many times over the past 2 years since they left Earth. Her mother believed that harsh lessons made people stronger. Every mistake meant no food. Every error meant punishment. Yes, mother, Minji said softly. Captain Yunji, her mother corrected. When we are working, I am your captain, not your mother. Yes, Captain Yunji. The agricultural bay was huge, filled with growing plants and humming machines. This was where the ship grew most of its food. Captain Yunji controlled everything here. She decided who got extra rations and who got less. She decided work schedules and punishment details. Most people thought she was strict but fair with the regular crew. Only Minji knew the real truth. As the day continued, Minji tried to focus on her tasks. She checked water systems, recorded plant growth, and cleaned equipment. But her empty stomach made it hard to think clearly. Her hands shook from weakness. When she tried to lift a heavy container of fertilizer, it slipped from her fingers. The container hit the floor with a loud crash. White powder spilled everywhere. The sound echoed through the bay like thunder. Captain Yunji appeared immediately, as if she had been waiting for this moment. Clumsy, she said, looking down at the mess. Wasteful. Do you know how much that fertilizer costs? Do you know how long it takes to make more? I am sorry, Minji whispered. I will clean it up. Sorry does not fix the waste. Sorry does not replace what is lost. Captain Yunji looked around the bay. All the workers were watching now, even though they tried to pretend they were not. No breakfast tomorrow either. Maybe 2 missed meals will teach you to be more careful. Minji got down on her knees and started scooping up the fertilizer with her bare hands. Some of the other workers wanted to help. She could see it in their faces. But they knew what would happen if Captain Yunji caught them helping. They would face punishment too. Hours passed. Minji finished cleaning and went back to her other duties. Her head felt light and dizzy. The numbers on screens became harder to read. She made another small error when recording temperature data, then another when she forgot to check one of the water pumps. Each mistake brought another punishment. No lunch the next day. Extra work hours. Cleaning duties in the waste processing area. Captain Yunji's voice never changed. Cold. Professional. As if she was disciplining any other crew member, not her own daughter. As the workday finally ended, other crew members went to the dining area for their evening meal. The smell of cooked vegetables and protein bars filled the corridors. Minji's stomach cramped with hunger, but she went to her small sleeping quarters instead. Her room was tiny, just big enough for a narrow bed and a small desk. She had no personal items except for a few old books and a photo of her father. He had died in the plague that swept through Earth before they launched. In the photo, he was smiling and holding a younger version of Minji. She could barely remember what his laugh sounded like anymore. Minji lay on her bed and tried not to think about food. She tried to remember the lessons from her tutoring programs, math and science and history, but the hunger made everything fuzzy. She had been losing weight for months. Her clothes hung loose on her thin frame. Dark circles showed under her eyes. Outside her small window, stars moved slowly past as the ship continued its long journey. Somewhere out there was their new home, a planet with clean air and open spaces. But Minji wondered if she would be strong enough to see it. Each day seemed harder than the last. Each mistake brought more punishment. She closed her eyes and tried to sleep. Tomorrow would bring more work, more chances to make errors, more opportunities for her mother to find fault. The cycle would continue day after day as the ship moved through the darkness between worlds. In the agricultural bay, the lights dimmed to night settings. The plants continued growing under artificial suns. The water systems hummed quietly. And somewhere in the ship's many corridors, people lived their lives and made their plans, most of them unaware that a 12-year-old girl was slowly wasting away just a few levels below their feet. Do-hyun crawled through the maintenance tunnel on level 4, his tool belt making soft sounds against the metal walls. The tunnel was barely wide enough for a man, but he had traveled these passages for 3 years now. He knew every pipe, every wire, every corner of the ship's hidden skeleton. He stopped at junction point 7 and opened his toolkit. The air recycling system needed repair, but that was not the real reason he was here. Through a small grate, he could see into the corridor below. This was where Minji walked every morning on her way to the agricultural bay. Do-hyun had been watching for 2 weeks now. He saw how thin the girl had become. He saw how she stumbled when she walked. He saw how she pressed her hand against the wall to steady herself. It reminded him too much of his own daughter Ayana in those last days before the plague took her. His wife Maria and daughter Ayana had died just 3 months before the ship launched. The sickness came fast and left him with nothing but memories and an empty place in his heart. He had joined the colony mission because staying on Earth meant living with ghosts. Now he was watching another child fade away, and he could not stand it anymore. Do-hyun finished his repair work and made his way back through the tunnels. He had a plan, but it would be dangerous. Captain Yoonji controlled the food distribution in her section. Anyone caught sharing rations faced severe punishment. But Do-hyun knew the ship better than anyone. If he was careful, very careful, he might be able to help without being caught. That evening, Do-hyun sat in his quarters and looked at his meal tray. Standard protein bar, vegetable paste, vitamin drink. Not much, but more than enough for one man. He cut the protein bar in half and wrapped one piece in clean cloth. The vegetable paste went into a small container. Half the vitamin drink went into another container. His grandfather had taught him that a man's strength comes from protecting those who cannot protect themselves. His Apache ancestors knew that the survival of the tribe depended on caring for the weakest members. A child's empty stomach was everyone's responsibility. The next morning, Do-hyun was already in the maintenance tunnel when Minji walked below. She moved even slower than yesterday. Her small hand left a smudge on the wall where she leaned for support. When she disappeared around the corner, Do-hyun opened the air vent and dropped the small package of food. He watched through the grate as Minji came back this way hours later. She almost walked past the package. Then she stopped and looked around the empty corridor. She picked up the small bundle and opened it carefully. Her eyes went wide when she saw the food inside. Minji looked up and down the corridor again. She was alone. She ate the protein bar quickly, then drank the vitamin mixture. For the first time in weeks, Do-hyun saw something like hope in her face. But eating in the corridor was dangerous. If Captain Yoonji found out, the punishment would be terrible. Do-hyun needed a better plan. Over the next few days, he studied Minji's schedule more carefully. She had 15 minutes each afternoon when she cleaned storage room C7. The room had no security cameras because it only held cleaning supplies. More importantly, it had an air vent that connected to the maintenance tunnels. Do-hyun began leaving small portions of his food in that storage room. He wrapped everything carefully and hid it behind boxes of soap. He left water containers too, knowing that hunger was not Minji's only problem. The girl was smart. She learned quickly that someone was helping her. She started checking the storage room every day during her cleaning time. She ate carefully, taking only small bites so the food would last longer. She hid the containers well and never left any evidence. Hyunwoo noticed the change first. He worked closest to Minji in the agricultural bay and saw that she seemed a little stronger. Her hands did not shake as much. She made fewer mistakes with the data pads. "The girl looks better today," Hyunwoo said to Sora during their break. Sora nodded. She had noticed too. Maybe she is getting used to the hunger. "No child gets used to that," Hyunwoo said quietly. "Someone is helping her." They looked around the bay. Captain Yoonji was checking plant growth in another section. They could speak freely for a moment. "Who would dare?" Sora asked. "Captain Yoonji watches everything." Hyunwoo shrugged. He did not know, but he was glad someone had found the courage. He had wanted to help Minji many times, but he had a family of his own to protect. If he lost his job in the agricultural section, his wife and 2 sons would suffer. Do-hyun continued his secret mission for weeks. He learned Minji's routines perfectly. He knew when she would be alone and when it was safe to leave food. He began adding other things too. A small flashlight when he noticed her squinting in dim areas, vitamin pills that would help her body heal, a soft cloth that could serve as a pillow for her hard bed. The work was not easy. Do-hyun had to give up half his food every day. He grew thinner himself, but he was a grown man with years of stored strength. Minji was a child with nothing to spare. He also had to be incredibly careful. The maintenance tunnels were his domain, but other workers sometimes needed access too. Security patrols walked the corridors at random times. Captain Yoonji had eyes everywhere in her section of the ship. One afternoon, Do-hyun was placing a food package in storage room C7 when he heard footsteps in the corridor outside. Heavy boots. Authority walking with purpose. He froze and listened. Captain Yoonji's voice came through the door. "Check every storage room on this level. Someone has been stealing supplies." Do-hyun's heart pounded. He looked up at the air vent above him. Too high to reach quickly. The footsteps were getting closer. In seconds, they would open this door and find him with the evidence in his hands. He did the only thing he could think of. He grabbed a wrench from his tool belt and started working on the air vent's mounting bolts. When the door opened, he was standing on a box, apparently doing maintenance work. "What are you doing here?" Captain Yoonji demanded. "Air circulation problem," Do-hyun said calmly. "Someone reported strange smells. I am checking the ventilation." Captain Yoonji looked around the room suspiciously. Her eyes passed over the food package, but it was hidden behind cleaning supplies. After a long moment, she nodded. "Finish quickly and report to my office when you are done." The door closed. Do-hyun waited until the footsteps faded away, then carefully hid the food package and climbed back into the tunnel system. His hands were shaking, but not from fear, from anger. He had seen the look in Captain Yoonji's eyes when she stared at those storage shelves. She was hunting. She knew someone was helping her daughter, and she was determined to stop it. This meant Do-hyun would have to be even more careful. But he would not stop. He could not stop. Somewhere in the darkness of space, his own daughter's spirit was watching. She would want him to save this child, even if it meant risking everything. Part 3. The Discovery Network. Minji sat in storage room C7 and unwrapped the small package she had found behind the soap boxes. Inside was half a protein bar, some dried fruit, and something new. A small metal tool that looked like it belonged in the engineering section. She turned it over in her hands, wondering what it was for. There was also a piece of paper with simple drawings on it. The drawings showed how to use the tool to open emergency food storage panels. Minji studied the pictures carefully. Someone was not just giving her food anymore. They were teaching her how to find food on her own. For 3 weeks now, mysterious packages had appeared in this room. Always when she was alone. Always hidden in the same spot. At first, Minji thought maybe she was dreaming. Hunger could make people see things that were not there. But the food was real. It made her stronger. It helped her think more clearly. She ate the protein bar slowly and put the tool in her pocket. The drawing showed emergency panels in 3 different locations. All places where she could go without being noticed. Whoever was helping her knew the ship very well. Minji finished her cleaning work and left the storage room. She walked carefully through the corridors, trying to look normal. But inside, her mind was racing. Who was her secret helper? Why were they risking punishment to help her? What did they want in return? She had started watching people more carefully. Hyunwoo sometimes looked at her with kind eyes, but he never came near the storage room. Sora had given her a small smile yesterday, but that could mean nothing. Jinwoo from the maintenance crew walked through this area sometimes, but so did many people. The mystery helper was smart and careful. They left no signs except the food and tools. They knew exactly when she would be alone. They understood the ship's security systems well enough to avoid the cameras. This meant they were probably crew, not passengers. In the agricultural bay, Captain Unji was becoming suspicious. She watched Minji more closely than before. She noticed that her daughter was making fewer mistakes. She saw that Minji did not seem as weak as she should be after missing so many meals. "You look well fed for someone who missed breakfast and lunch yesterday," Captain Unji said during the afternoon work shift. "I am trying harder to focus," Minji replied carefully. "I want to do better work." Captain Unji walked around her daughter slowly like a predator studying prey. "Focus does not put meat on bones. Focus does not stop hunger pains. Tell me the truth. Where are you getting food?" "I am not getting food from anywhere else," Minji said. This was technically true. She was not getting food from anywhere else right now. She had eaten the last package hours ago. "I have increased security in this section," Captain Yoonji announced loudly enough for other workers to hear. "Anyone caught sharing rations will be sent to the prison level for 30 days. Anyone caught helping my daughter will face the same punishment, plus loss of all privileges." The other workers kept their heads down and continued their tasks. But Minji saw Hyunwoo's hands tighten on his tools. She saw Sora bite her lip nervously. Even people who were not helping her were afraid. That evening, Do-hyun sat in the maintenance tunnel and listened to the ship's sounds. Metal expanding and contracting as the temperature changed, water moving through pipes, air flowing through vents. After 3 years, these sounds were like a language he could understand. He had heard about Captain Yoonja's new security measures. Guards were checking storage areas more often. Cameras had been moved to cover blind spots. The captain was serious about finding whoever was helping her daughter. This meant Do-hyun needed to change his methods. The storage room was no longer safe, but he had other options. The ship's maintenance systems gave him access to places most people never saw. He crawled to a different section of the tunnel and opened a small panel. Behind it was the ship's emergency supply network. Every level had hidden food and water caches in case of disaster. The supplies were checked only once per month, and the next check was not due for 2 weeks. Do-hyun took a small portion from the emergency supplies. Not enough to be noticed, but enough to keep Minji alive another day. He wrapped the food carefully and made his way to a new hiding spot. The ship's waste processing area was avoided by most people. The smell was unpleasant, and only cleaning crews went there regularly. But Minji had been assigned to clean this area as punishment for her recent mistakes. Do-hyun knew she would be there tomorrow morning. He found a loose panel near the waste bins and created a small hiding space behind it. The food would be safe there until Minji found it. He also left the emergency tool he had given her before, along with new drawings that showed how to access the emergency food caches. Far outside the ship, something was watching them. The Vorlak scout vessel moved silently through space, its sensors focused on the human colony ship. For months, the aliens had been studying this strange species that traveled between stars in metal containers. Commander Thek stood on the bridge of the scout ship and watched data streams flow across multiple screens. The humans were fascinating creatures. They showed incredible intelligence and technical skill, but they also showed puzzling behaviors that the Vorlak were trying to understand. "The social patterns are inconsistent," reported Science Officer Vex. "Some humans show great care for their group members. Others show cruelty that serves no survival purpose." "Show me the specific case you have been monitoring," Commander Thek ordered. The main screen displayed thermal imaging from inside the human ship. 2 figures appeared in false colors that showed their body heat and movement patterns. One was large and bright, indicating good health and nutrition. The other was small and dim, showing the signs of malnutrition and weakness. "The large figure is the offspring's parent," Vex explained. "But instead of providing care, she withholds food as punishment. This behavior reduces the offspring's chances of survival." "And the other human we detected?" Thek asked, unknown identity. "This individual secretly provides food to the starving offspring. The behavior shows no obvious benefit to the provider, who reduces his own nutrition to help another's child." Commander Thek studied the data carefully. The Vorlak were preparing to make contact with humanity soon. They needed to understand what kind of species they were dealing with. These humans showed both the worst and best qualities the Vorlak had observed in intelligent life. Continue monitoring, Thek ordered. I want to understand which behavior represents the true nature of these humans. Are they cruel or compassionate? Do they protect their weak or abandon them? Should we intervene to save the offspring? Vex asked. No, we must observe their natural behaviors. Their response to this situation will tell us everything we need to know about their worthiness as a species. Back on the human ship, Minji made her way to the waste processing area for her morning cleaning duties. The smell was terrible, but she had grown used to it. She worked quickly and efficiently, checking every corner for the packages that might be hidden there. Behind a loose panel near the large waste containers, her fingers found another small bundle. Food, water, and new tools she did not recognize. There were also detailed drawings showing locations throughout the ship where emergency supplies could be found. Whoever was helping her was not just keeping her alive anymore. They were teaching her to survive on her own. They were preparing her for something bigger than just getting through another day. Minji ate carefully and studied the drawings. Her mysterious guardian was giving her independence. But independence meant she would have to take bigger risks. And bigger risks meant greater chances of being caught by her mother. She looked up at the ceiling and whispered a quiet thank you to whoever might be listening. Then she hid the evidence and got back to work. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for the first time in months she felt like she might be strong enough to face them. The alarm started at 0600 hours ship time. Red lights flashed in every corridor. The announcement came through the speakers in a calm computer voice that somehow made everything more frightening. All crew members report to stations immediately. Unknown vessels detected. This is not a drill. Minji was in her small quarters when the alarms began. She grabbed her work clothes and ran toward the agricultural bay. In the corridors, people moved with quick, nervous steps. Some looked excited, others looked afraid. After 3 years in empty space, they were finally meeting someone else. Captain Unji was already in the bay when Minji arrived. She stood at the main control panel with several other section leaders, watching data streams on multiple screens. Her face was hard and focused, the way it always looked when she was planning something important. The aliens are requesting communication, reported Communications Officer Neon. They want to speak with our leadership. Tell them we will talk, Captain Unji replied. But they follow our rules. We are not children to be intimidated. On the main viewing screen, 3 alien ships appeared. They were sleek and silver, shaped like teardrops moving through water. Each ship was larger than the human colony vessel. They moved with smooth precision that showed advanced technology. The screen flickered and suddenly an alien face appeared. Commander Thek had large, dark eyes, blue-gray skin, and no visible hair. When he spoke, his words came through translation devices that made his voice sound strange and hollow. Humans of the vessel Teguk, Commander Thek said. I am Thek of the Vorlak Dominion. We have been observing your journey toward the world you call New Haven. Captain Yunji stepped forward. I am Captain Yunji of the Agricultural Division. Why have you been watching us without permission? We watch all species that enter our territory, Thek replied. The world you seek is under our protection. We must determine if you are worthy to share it. The word sent a chill through everyone in the bay. Share it. That meant the planet was not empty. It belonged to someone else. What do you mean by worthy? Asked Captain Park, the ship's overall commander who had joined the communication link. We have seen many species destroy worlds through war, waste, and cruelty, Thek explained. We allow only those who show wisdom and compassion to settle on protected worlds. You will be tested. What kind of tests? Captain Park asked. Tests that reveal your true nature. How you treat your weak will show us who you really are. How you respond to crisis will demonstrate your character. The testing begins now. The alien ships moved closer to the human vessel. Strange energy fields surrounded the Taiguk. The ship's power systems began to fluctuate. Non-essential systems shut down one by one. They are limiting our resources, reported Engineering Chief Kim over the communication system. Food production, water recycling, power distribution, all reduced by 50%. Captain Yunji's eyes grew bright with understanding. This was exactly the kind of challenge she had prepared for her entire life. Discipline and order would see them through. Strong leadership would prove human worth. Emergency rationing begins immediately, she announced. Work shifts will be extended. Anyone who wastes resources will face severe punishment. We will show these aliens that humans can survive anything. Over the next 3 days, life on the ship became much harder. Food portions shrank to barely enough for survival. Water was rationed carefully. People worked longer hours in dimmer light as power was redirected to essential systems only. But Captain Yunji saw opportunity in crisis. This was her chance to demonstrate proper human leadership to the alien observers. She increased security patrols. She assigned punishment details for minor infractions. She made examples of anyone who complained about the new conditions. Minji's situation became desperate. With food already restricted for everyone, her mother's punishments meant she got almost nothing to eat. The emergency supplies that Do-hyun had taught her to access were locked down under the new security measures. Guard patrols checked storage areas every few hours. Do-hyun watched the girl growing weaker and knew he had to take bigger risks. The aliens were testing humanity, but they were really testing each individual human. How they responded to this crisis would determine everyone's future. He began using the maintenance tunnels more boldly. When guard patrols were in other sections, he would quickly access emergency supplies and distribute them to hiding spots throughout the ship. Not just for Minji now, but for other people who were struggling with the reduced rations. Jin-woo, another maintenance worker, started noticing unusual activity in the tunnel systems. Tools appeared in places where they had not been left. Emergency panels showed signs of recent access. Someone was moving through the ship's hidden spaces with purpose. One evening, Jin-woo decided to investigate. He entered the tunnel system through a service hatch on level 6 and followed the signs of recent activity. After crawling for 20 minutes, he saw a light ahead and heard quiet sounds of someone working. He found Do-hyun carefully dividing food portions into small containers. Around him were tools and supplies gathered from various emergency stations. The Apache man worked with focused intensity, like someone performing a sacred ritual. "I wondered who was doing this," Jin-woo said quietly. Do-hyun turned quickly, ready to defend himself. But when he saw Jin-woo's face, he relaxed slightly. They had worked together for 3 years. If anyone could be trusted, it was this steady, quiet man. "The girl will die if someone does not help her," Do-hyun said simply. "I know," Jin-woo replied. "My daughter is the same age. If someone treated her the way Captain Yunji treats Minji, I would want someone to help." Jin-woo moved closer and looked at the food portions Do-hyun had prepared. "You cannot do this alone much longer. The security sweeps are getting more thorough. They will catch you eventually. Then they will catch me," Do-hyun said. "But the child will have eaten for another day. What if more people helped?" Jin-woo asked. "What if we made it harder for them to catch everyone?" Do-hyun studied the younger man's face. "That would be very dangerous for you. You have a family to protect." "My family includes more than just my wife and children," Jin-woo said. "It includes everyone on this ship who needs help. The aliens are watching how we treat each other. If we let a child starve while her mother gets full rations, what does that say about humans?" Over the next 2 days, the network of helpers grew quietly. Neon from communications began providing information about guard patrol schedules. Sora from the medical section contributed vitamin supplements and nutrition tablets. Hyunwoo found ways to redirect small amounts of agricultural production to emergency supplies. None of them spoke openly about what they were doing. But they began to coordinate their efforts through subtle signals and careful timing. When one person was at risk of discovery, others would create distractions or provide alibis. Captain Yunji noticed that people seemed to be managing the crisis better than expected. Productivity remained high despite the reduced resources. Morale was holding steady. She believed this proved that her strict leadership methods were working, but she also noticed that Minji still looked stronger than she should. The girl was still making fewer mistakes than someone facing severe punishment should make. Someone was still helping her daughter, and now they were being even more careful about it. "Double the security patrols," she ordered. "Check every storage area twice per shift. I want to know who is undermining my authority." On the alien ships, Commander Thek watched the human responses with growing interest. The formal leaders were responding to crisis with increased control and punishment, but other humans were quietly working together to protect their most vulnerable members. "The test is revealing 2 different types of human behavior," Science Officer Vex reported. "Some humans respond to scarcity by hoarding resources and punishing the weak. Others respond by sharing what little they have and protecting those who cannot protect themselves." "Which behavior is dominant?" Thek asked, unknown. The sharing behavior is being done in secret. The humans practicing it are risking punishment from their own leaders, but they continue despite the danger. Commander Thek made a decision: increase the pressure, reduce their resources by another 25%. Let us see which type of human survives when the situation becomes truly desperate. The second wave of restrictions hit the ship like a physical blow. Food production dropped to survival minimums. Water recycling slowed to emergency levels. Even the air recycling systems worked at reduced capacity. Now the real test would begin. The collapse happened during the morning shift on the 7th day of testing. Minji was carrying a data pad across the agricultural bay when her legs simply stopped working. She fell hard onto the metal floor, the pad scattering into pieces around her. The sound echoed through the bay like breaking glass. Every worker stopped what they were doing and stared. Minji tried to get up, but her arms had no strength left. Her vision blurred at the edges. Her heart beat fast and weak against her ribs. Captain Unji appeared immediately, her face dark with anger. "Get up," she ordered. "This is not the time for dramatic performances." "I cannot," Minji whispered. Her voice was so quiet that people had to move closer to hear her. "I cannot feel my legs." "Nonsense. You are being lazy." Captain Unji looked around the bay at her workers. This is what happens when discipline breaks down. When children think they can manipulate their way out of consequences. But Hyunwoo was kneeling beside Minji now, and his face was pale with worry. "Captain, she is not pretending. Look at her skin. Look at her eyes." Minji's skin had a gray color that meant severe malnutrition. Her eyes were sunken deep in her skull. When Hyunwoo lifted her arm, it felt like lifting a stick covered in thin cloth. "Someone call medical," Hyunwoo said loudly. "No one calls anyone without my permission." Captain Unji snapped. "She will get up when she decides to stop this foolishness." That was when Do-hyun broke cover. He had been watching through a maintenance grate above the bay. For months he had stayed hidden in the shadows, helping secretly while others faced the consequences in the light. But watching this child collapse from hunger he had not been able to prevent was too much. The grate crashed down as Do-hyun dropped through the opening. He landed hard on the bay floor and ran to Minji's side. His tool belt jangled as he moved, and his work clothes were dirty from crawling through tunnels. "She needs food and water immediately," he said, checking Minji's pulse. "Her body is shutting down." Captain Unji stared at him with amazement and fury. "What are you doing here? This is not your section." "I am helping a dying child," Do-hyun replied simply. From his tool belt he pulled out a small container of water and a nutrition bar. He broke the bar into tiny pieces and gave them to Minji one at a time. "Where did you get that food?" Captain Unji demanded. "All rations are accounted for. I saved it from my own meals." Do-hyun helped Minji sip the water slowly. Color was already returning to her face. "I have been saving food for her for months." The silence in the agricultural bay was complete. Everyone understood what this meant. The mysterious helper who had been defying Captain Unji's punishment system was here, revealed at last. "You have been stealing food and undermining my authority," Captain Unji said. Her voice was dangerously quiet. "You have been interfering with proper discipline. I have been keeping your daughter alive while you tried to starve her to death," Do-hyun replied. Captain Unji's face turned red with rage. "Security to Agricultural Bay 7 immediately," she called into her communication device. "I have a thief and a saboteur to arrest." But before security could respond, Jinwoo stepped forward from behind a bank of plant growth units. "I helped too," he announced. "I gave him access codes for emergency supplies." Then Naeon appeared from near the communication station. "I provided patrol schedules so he could avoid detection." Sora emerged from behind the medical monitoring equipment. "I contributed vitamin supplements and medical supplies." One by one, other workers in the bay began to step forward. People who had seemed to be minding their own business for months revealed that they had been part of a quiet network of care. "We all helped," Hyunwoo said finally. "We could not watch a child die while we had food to share." Captain Unji looked around the bay with growing horror. Nearly half her workforce had been working against her. They had been organized and careful and successful. Most importantly, they had been willing to risk punishment to protect someone who could not protect herself. "You are all guilty of theft and insubordination," she declared. "When security arrives, you will all face charges." "No," said a new voice from the bay entrance. "They will not." Captain Park, the ship's overall commander, entered with two alien figures behind him. Commander Thek and Science Officer Vex moved with fluid grace that seemed strange in the mechanical agricultural bay. "The testing period is complete," Commander Thek announced. His translation device made his words echo strangely in the large space. "We have observed your species long enough to make our determination." Captain Yunji straightened to her full height. "Good. You have seen how humans respond to crisis with discipline and strong leadership. You have seen that we can maintain order even under extreme conditions." "We have seen something very different," Commander Thek replied. He looked down at Minji, who was now sitting up with Do-hyun's help. "We have seen that some humans respond to scarcity by hoarding resources and punishing the weak. But we have also seen that other humans respond by sharing what little they have to protect those who cannot protect themselves." Science Officer Vex stepped closer to the group of workers who had revealed themselves. "You risked your own safety to help someone else's child. You received no benefit from this action. You expected no reward. Why did you do this?" Do-hyun looked up from where he knelt beside Minji. "Because it was right," he said simply. "A child's hunger is everyone's responsibility. Even when helping meant you would have less food for yourselves?" Vex asked. "Especially then," Hyunwoo replied. "When resources are limited, protecting the weakest becomes more important, not less important." Commander Thek nodded slowly. "This is the answer we hope to find. Your species shows the capacity for true civilization." He turned to Captain Yunji, who was watching the scene with growing confusion and anger. "You believe that strength comes from the power to punish and control others. But true strength comes from the willingness to sacrifice for those who cannot sacrifice for themselves." "I was maintaining order," Captain Yunji protested. "I was preparing my daughter for the harsh realities of life." "You were teaching her that might makes right and that the strong have no obligations to the weak," Commander Thek said. "These are the philosophies that destroy worlds and civilizations." He looked around the bay at all the workers who had stepped forward to admit their role in helping Minji. "These humans understand that a society's worth is measured by how it treats its most vulnerable members. This understanding makes them worthy of sharing New Haven." Captain Park moved closer to Captain Yunji. "You are relieved of command, effective immediately. Your authority over the agricultural section and over your daughter is terminated." Captain Yunji stared at him in shock. "You cannot do this." "I have done everything correctly. I have maintained discipline and efficiency." "You nearly killed a child through deliberate neglect," Captain Park replied. "That is not discipline. That is cruelty." Do-hyun helped Minji stand up slowly. She was still weak, but she was alive and getting stronger with each sip of water and each small bite of food. "Thank you," she whispered to him. Then she looked around at all the people who had risked so much to help her. "Thank you all." Commander Thek watched this scene with what might have been approval on his alien features. "We grant humanity permission to settle on New Haven," he announced. "But not because of your technology or your strength, because of your compassion." The agricultural bay filled with quiet cheers and sighs of relief. Outside the windows, the three alien ships began to move away, their mission complete. But the real work was just beginning. A new world waited ahead, and the humans would need to decide what kind of society they wanted to build there. The test had shown them both their worst and best possibilities. Looking down at Minji's grateful face, Do-hyun knew which path they would choose. 6 months later, Minji stood on the observation deck of the colony ship and watched New Haven grow larger in the windows. The planet was beautiful, with blue oceans and green continents wrapped in white clouds. Soon they would leave the metal corridors that had been home for over 3 years and walk on real ground under an open sky. She was stronger now. Her cheeks had color again, and her arms had muscles instead of just bones covered by skin. The dark circles under her eyes were gone. When she smiled, which she did often these days, people could see the intelligent, curious girl she had always been underneath the hunger and fear. "It looks like Earth," she said to Do-hyun, who stood beside her at the window. "But cleaner somehow," Do-hyun nodded. His own face looked healthier too. When he stopped giving away half his food every day, he had gained back the weight he had lost. But more than that, he looked peaceful in a way he had not since his wife and daughter died. "The Vorlaks say the air is good to breathe," he told her. "The soil is rich for growing food. There are rivers full of clean water and forests full of animals that will not harm us." "Will you still teach me about engineering?" Minji asked. This had become their routine over the past months. Every day after her regular lessons, she would meet Do-hyun in the maintenance sections and learn how the ship's systems worked. She had quick hands and a curious mind that made her a natural student. Of course, Do-hyun said, on New Haven, we will need to build power systems and water treatment plants and communication networks. There will be much work for engineers. And you will teach me about your grandfather's stories too? This was newer but just as important. Do-hyun had begun sharing the Apache wisdom his grandfather had taught him. Stories about living in harmony with the land, lessons about the responsibility of the strong to protect the weak, values that had guided him during the dark months when Minji was slowly starving. Always, he promised. Those stories are part of who you are now too. The ship's announcement system crackled to life. All colonists to preparation stations. Landing procedures begin in 4 hours. Repeat, all colonists to preparation stations. Minji and Do-hyun left the observation deck and walked through corridors that buzzed with excitement and activity. People carried bags and boxes toward the shuttle bays. Children ran between adults, too excited to walk properly. Even the adults moved with energy that had been missing during the long journey through space. Everything was different now. After Captain Yoonji was removed from command, the ship's leadership had reorganized completely. Instead of rigid authority structures, they had formed councils where everyone had a voice. Instead of punishment for mistakes, they had support systems to help people learn and grow. Captain Yoonji herself was in a rehabilitation program. She worked in the ship's library now, helping to organize the knowledge archives that would be important for building their new society. She was learning different ways to lead and different ways to parent. The process was slow and difficult, but she was trying. I know I cannot undo the harm I caused, she had said to Minji during one of their supervised meetings, but I want to learn how to be the mother you deserve to have. Minji had forgiven her, though the relationship would take time to rebuild. Some wounds heal quickly when the right care is applied. Others need months or years to mend properly. In the preparation area, Minji found her assigned group for the landing process. Hyunwoo was there with his wife and 2 sons. Sora had her elderly parents with her. Jinwoo brought his teenage daughter who had been too young to help during the crisis, but who understood what her father had. Nayeon from communications was checking everyone's equipment and making sure they understood the landing procedures. She had become something like a group leader, not through appointment or authority, but because people trusted her judgment and kindness. The shuttles will take us down in groups of 50, she explained. The Vorlak have prepared landing sites with basic shelter and supplies. Our job is to start building permanent homes and infrastructure. What about security? Asked one of the colonists. What if there are dangers on the planet we do not know about? The Vorlak have been protecting New Haven for generations, Nayeon replied. They have removed dangerous predators and toxic plants, but they will not do everything for us. We must prove we can take care of ourselves and the world they are sharing with us. Do-hyun raised his hand. What are the priorities for construction? Water treatment first, Nayeon said. Then power generation, then communication systems, then permanent housing. The engineering teams will be critical for getting everything working quickly. Minji felt a flutter of excitement in her stomach. She would be part of that work. Not as a child who was tolerated or a burden to be managed, but as someone with skills and knowledge who could contribute to building their new home. The hours passed quickly as they completed their preparations. When the boarding call came for their shuttle group, Minji carried her small bag of possessions and walked with Do-hyun toward the shuttle bay. As they moved through the corridors one last time, she thought about everything that had happened on this ship, the hunger and fear, the secret packages of food hidden in storage rooms, the network of people who had risked punishment to keep her alive. The moment when Do-hyun had dropped through the ceiling to help her when she collapsed, all of that had led to this moment. Walking toward a new world with people who cared about her, carrying skills and knowledge that would help build a better society. Understanding both the cruelty and the kindness that humans were capable of, and choosing which one she would practice. The shuttle was crowded but comfortable. As it detached from the colony ship and began its descent toward New Haven, Minji looked through the small window and watched the planet's surface grow larger and more detailed. She could see the landing site now. A cleared area near a river, with temporary shelters already set up by earlier shuttle groups. Beyond that were rolling hills covered in purple and green vegetation. In the distance, mountains rose against a sky that was bluer than any sky she could remember. The shuttle touched down with a gentle bump, The doors opened and clean air flowed in, carrying scents of growing things and fresh water and open spaces that seemed to go on forever. Minji stepped off the shuttle and felt real ground under her feet for the first time in over 3 years. The gravity was slightly lighter than on the ship, making her feel like she could jump higher and run faster than ever before. Do-hyun stood beside her and breathed deeply. "My grandfather would have loved this place," he said. "So much room to grow, so much potential for good things." Around them, other colonists were emerging from shuttles and beginning the work of making this planet their home. Some were setting up communication equipment to stay in contact with the ship. Others were testing the water systems and power generators. Still others were exploring the area and planning where to build permanent structures. But before joining the work, Minji wanted to do something important. She walked to a spot where she could see both the river and the mountains and the landing area full of busy people. She took a small notebook from her bag and wrote down the date and location. Then she began to record the story of what had brought them here. The cruel system that nearly killed her, the quiet man who refused to let that happen, the network of people who chose compassion over safety, the alien observers who judged them worthy because of that compassion. Future generations would need to know this story. They would need to understand that their new world was built not by the strong dominating the weak, but by the strong choosing to protect and nurture the weak. That was the foundation their society would rest on. As the sun set over New Haven, painting the sky in colors she had never seen before, Minji continued writing. Around her, the sounds of construction and planning and hope filled the air. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new opportunities to choose between cruelty and kindness. She knew which choice she would make. Do-hyun had taught her that a person's worth was measured not by their power to punish others, but by their willingness to help others grow strong. That lesson would guide her for the rest of her life, and through her, it would guide the society they were building on this new world under alien stars.